between the unrestricted free agents and also the cap casualties, the Houston Texans will see some big names this year during free agency. However, all money ain't good money. There are players I think Houston should avoid.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around. Fun show lined up today. I'm excited to announce this Thursday I'll be touching down in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine, first of my career. So I wanted to just talk with you guys to give you some insight on some of the things that I'm looking forward to from a player perspective, some of the testings that we're going to see from the T-shirt Olympics, and also just get an opportunity to speak with some of these players on a little bit more intimate level, just to see if they're a fit for Houston, right? And also, we'd love to hear from you guys. What players would you like for me to talk about or look out for as I'm in Indianapolis? CJ Stroud, grateful to be in Houston, recently acknowledged for his foundational work, and he said some great things that I think for Houston Texan fans, it's important to reflect on. And so that's what this Tuesday is going to be about, but it's also going to be about players the Texans should avoid in free agency. Now, within the next couple of months, we got the free agent period, we got the NFL draft. The next 2 months will be critical for your team, Texan fans. And I just want to put this out right now. When the team doesn't draft who you want, or when the team doesn't sign who you want, do not get on social media, mention that team's handle, right, and get to going off on the social media manager. They are not Nick Casario. They are not a part of the scout department. Their job is to make social media cool. Don't get it on that social media platform going off on everybody, but there are players I think the Texans should absolutely avoid between the cap casualties and free agents. Is some players out there who, in many ways, Texan fans may want, but for Houston, staying away from these players may be smart. Number one for me is Tony Pollard. He's a potential cap casualty for the Tennessee Titans, and he had a good year, all things considered, in 2025. Texan fans out there, listen, he had 127 zone runs compared to 113, so there was great balance there. 3.2 yards after the contact. You look at the 39 missed tackles. A lot of things that Tony Pollard did for a team in Tennessee that was really playing for nothing last year. I mean, you can look at it and say that's a positive takeaway, right? All things considered. But this is why I say no to Tony Pollard. He was just terrible on third and short. And for me, when I look at backs that can potentially get this offense to the next level for Houston, they were god-awful in those situations last year. A lot of times, Titus Howard mentioned it, like they needed to be better on short yardage situations. And for Tony Pollard, he's sitting at 2.1 yards per carry on third and 1 to 3 yards to go. That's just me. I'd avoid Tony Pollard personally. But he did do some good things in 2025 that's admirable. And the Texans may know a lot about him simply because they saw him play it twice last year. But for me, if you sign Pollard, that's a great sign for Woody Marks, right? Like, you guys have heard me talk about Woody Marks a lot, how I view Woody Marks. I think he's a good back. I think he's a good player. But signing a Tony Pollard, to me, it would indicate Marks, you still have a lot of leeway here to be the number one guy in this running back room. That's a good sign for Marks. Not sure how much of a good sign that would be for the Houston Texans. And plus everything that Woody Marks brings to the table, at least based off of his rookie year. And I think Texan fans may have a little bit of PTSD, and know not to go based on a rookie year of a running back because they've been burned before. But some of the things that Woody Marks presents, I think his ceiling could be a Tony Pollard. The numbers that Tony Pollard can give you healthy with a lead back and a good offensive line in front of him. But I'll stay away from Tony Pollard. Hunter Henry is another potential cap casualty for the Patriots. And I love Hunter Henry. I love what he's done for that team over the past couple of seasons. I think he's been one of the more underrated tight ends in the league for some time now. But that age really does scare me a lot. And for Houston, you already have a near 30-year-old, plus 30-year-old aging tight end in Dalton Schultz. He's going to be 30 at the start of the year. Now, I will say this for the Texans, there are a lot of benefits of looking at Hunter here in Houston. He's proven for what I like about Hunter for Houston is what he'd be able to do right now, especially with him being such a red zone threat. And he's always been good for young quarterbacks. And those young quarterbacks have been able to lean on him in various ways to help impact the offense. And so you look at how he'd match up with CJ Stroud and what he present for CJ Stroud to be a crush for Stroud in the red zone. And just from a schematic standpoint, he'd fit. But you already have Dalton Schultz for that. And I think for that tight end room to take its next step, you don't need to necessarily duplicate it, right? You need to create, in many ways, the opposite alpha. And that opposite alpha at the tight end spot for Houston is a guy that can athletically do some things that Dalton Schultz just can't do right now. And I look at Hunter Henry, who, again, had a very good 2025 year, was not a drop-off, was not a down year, played a lot of great football. I'd go young and build and bring in a young player at that tight end spot that could be an extension of the young group that Houston has now. CJ Stroud, Jaden Higgins, Tank Dell when he returns, right? So, like, those key pieces, something to build on, especially considering, hey, in a couple of years, you're going to need some of these younger pieces to be able to step up once money really starts to get handed out. You look at CJ Stroud contract will be coming up in a couple of years. Nico Collins may get another contract extension, plus Will Anderson on the opposite side. I like tight end for Houston in this year's draft, or if Houston goes out and get a young Kyle Pitts. Cole Kmet is also 26 years old, by the way, but I stay away from the older vet, savvy vet at that, good vet, but I stay away from Hunter Henry. Mekhi Becton, a year ago, I think he'd been great for Houston. A year ago, Mekhi Becton was a name that I said, listen, in Philly, look at how he dominated and helped Saquon Barkley reach 2,000 yards. That was a year ago. I thought he would have been perfect for the Houston Texans. But then we got back to reality this past year. Becton had more than a down year. Becton had an 8.33% pressure rate allowed this last year. Many people feel as though Becton was a product of the Eagles system, and in a lot of ways, he failed the Chargers in 2025. Many factors could, play a role in his fall off, but for Houston, he's not worth the gamble. Not right now. If you didn't play well last year, don't come over to the Houston Texans. That's just what it is. And I've said it once, I'll say it again. I believe Cole Popovich is a good offensive line coach, but that doesn't mean you got to keep throwing him scraps to make a meal with, right? This ain't one of them situations where for Cole Popovich, he got to get the leftovers and feed his family of 5 with. Can't do that. Give him some premium cuts, right? Give him some fresh bread. Give him some fresh picked vegetables and allow for that meal to be something that everybody talks about instead of, well, he did a good job of pulling together scraps. But the Texans, from the offensive line standpoint, still can't get to the second level, still can't do some things. And what concerns me with Mekhi Becton is his second level blocking. And I think that's a problem with Trent Brown. Trent Brown is playing tackle, so you can live with that. You can't live with that at guard when your inability to get to the next level is a problem. And I'll say this. I think there are some names I like for Houston. So let's dive into that when I return. I mean, there's a couple of names that I think for the Houston Texans will make sense. So let's get into the last 2 names that I like, and then we'll talk about the Texans needed to do everything in their power to upgrade their offense this season. Their franchise quarterback has recently spoke about the team in a good light. The future could be bright for both CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. The future could also be bright for you and your family. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one, right? Between busy work days, cold winter nights, a packed schedule, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference. And that's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy to follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated number one by users of other meal quick kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, which is really important, and recipe ease. And it's easy to see why. Over 30 weekly options, including family sized meals and different dietary choices. Everything arrives pre portioned, so there's less prep, less mess, and no wasted food. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/locked on. That's homechef.com/locked on for 50% off your first box with free shipping and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive the free dessert. All right, Texan fans. There are a couple of names that I like for Houston. DeAndre Swift is a name. Plenty of zone runs in 2025, similar to Tony Pollard. And I've been saying that I think some of the things that Houston wanted to do from a systematic standpoint to boost the functionality of the offense were just not there last year because they didn't have the players to execute it, right? And it starts up front, obviously. Houston supposedly targeted Swift a couple of seasons ago. If he's cut, that could be a union waiting to happen. And I think, again, a DeAndre Swift in many ways would still signal the role Woody Marks is going to have here in Houston. The only running back out there that I could really see just taking away a lot of snaps where at the end of the year it's looking like an 80-20, 70-30 split between that back and Marks is Breece Hall. Like, even when we look at Kenneth Walker, I mean, he split the backfield all year with Zach Charbonnet up until the injury. Josh Jacobs is a potential cap casualty candidate that we talked about. You look at talent-wise, and you'll say, okay, maybe he could, take over. But many of these backs, I view them as I view a lot of these backs as in conjunction with. And that width is Woody Marks. It's only Breece Hall out there that I think is a true 80-20, 70-30 split for Houston. Also, Blake Cashman, a reunion that could make this defense very scary. He could be a potential cap casualty. And I think that for the Houston Texans, it's important to look at those options as well. He'd be an upgrade over Henry T. Last but not least, for the Houston Texans, and they have an MO of doing this. The Texans don't need another Robert Woods. The Texans don't need another Justin Watson. The Texans don't need another Braxton Berrios. For the Texans, what I'm getting at is do not bring in another receiver that don't have any juice. You got enough of that. You've had enough of that. You've had enough of that. And I'm gonna say this. Anything that you believe of Justin Watson or Robert Woods a couple of years ago, like those roles for receivers, Houston carried 6 last year, I believe. That's what you got Xavier Hutchinson for. If you're going to keep Hutchinson, if you're going to, make him a part of the game plan and keep him around, no matter how you view some of those older receivers that don't got no juice, and then I'll even say this towards, like, Mike Evans should not be a Houston Texan. I don't understand that. Do not bring in some of those juiceless receivers that you can't trust to stay on the field, that you can't trust to make a play when needed. It's enough of that. Enough. Now, CJ Stroud, man, he was at the annual Global Humanitarian Awards while the CJ Stroud Foundation was being honored. Stroud gave an impromptu speech about suffering. And he explained his belief, but he stated this. He stated that suffering is beautiful and is the reason we're here today. He also related this to his personal experiences with suffering, saying, of course, my last game didn't go the way I wanted it to. I'm okay with suffering in front of people because I know someone will see how I respond. We all have good days, we all have bad days, but my response needs to be of one of humility, joy, and gratitude because my Savior was on the cross for me. He also expressed his appreciation for the city of Houston, stating, I'm so grateful to be in Houston. This city has welcomed me with open arms. That brings me to this point. CJ Stroud, and everybody notices it, cut his hair. He cut his hair at the end of the year, right? He's been extremely open about his faith, which I admire personally, but he's been open there. I think he's been going through his own internal changes to get to a place where he is who he believes he's called to be. And for many athletes, we put athletes in a box sometimes where it feels like we're not giving them space to explore some of their own internal upbringings, the things that bring them real joy. And advocating for his faith is one of them, which is great. And I support him on that journey. Now, if I get back to football, does Stroud know he needs to bounce back? And I think he does. I think from a mental standpoint right now, I think Stroud, this is on the outside looking in, all speculation. But when you have a player like CJ Stroud who kind of got it out the mud in high school, but got to Ohio State, and a lot of things at Ohio State with the weapons, the offensive line, the coaching, the whole nine, makes it easy for quarterbacks to succeed and be great quarterbacks in college, which is why, for many people's belief, CJ Stroud is maybe the best Ohio State quarterback to come out because many Ohio State quarterbacks fail at the next level. Okay, why is that? Simply because if you go look at what they have to operate with in college, they have everything. They have everything at their hands. So you get to the league, you have a phenomenal rookie year. The following 2 years are not what you expect. This past year, you get that concussion, you miss 3 games, and then the playoffs in how it ends. Then you get the haircut, which obviously we all could be overlooking into this thing. But I think in many ways, you can look at the haircut, you can look at some of the things that Stroud does when he's not surrounding around football. I think in many ways, this is Stroud just shedding things off of him that may have kept him from a place of being the man that he wanted to be. And when you have some of those internal struggles, guys, that limits you from how effective you can be at your job. And throughout the year, this is kind of a callback, but throughout the year, one thing that I noticed, and I talked about this with my colleagues and Kim Davis and AD and Cole Thompson and others, and Stan on MC on the Squad Show, the lack of just confidence and swag from Stroud that we saw the first half of 2024 and when Houston started to reel off games that rookie year. You saw a lot of that lack last year. And so, and this is not an Amber Rose joke, but, since he gave her a ride home, he's been a little struggle here. But in many ways, I look at Stroud and I think that he understands that, for one, and this is a fair assessment of what I'm about to say, for one, screw the city. I got to get myself right. I mean, I'm thankful that Houston wants me here if I'm Stroud, but in many ways, like I look at CJ Stroud and where he is right now, and I think, was it all there for him last year? How much of the shoulder still bothered him last year throughout the year? The Houston Texans just kind of kept under wraps. How much internal war did he face throughout the year last year? These are some of the things that many of us don't account for when we talk about these players. And by the way, I'm actually glad I brought that up. Rest in peace to Rondale Moore. Like these players go through so much, and then they got to step out on Sundays and be the man. And in his case, be somewhat of what he thought he needed to be, which was Superman. Now for Stroud, okay, maybe he cut the locks off, he's taking the cap off. right? No more cape. Okay, now you can be Clark Kent. Things can slow down for Clark Kent. But I think he is grateful in many ways to be in Houston because without him being in Houston, would he have this? Would he have this journey to get back to where he was? Right? Be the one that is in his purpose. All that said, and it's not a but. All of that said, Stroud still has to bounce back, and I think in many ways for Houston, he knows that. I think I look at Stroud. I look at Stroud as a player that I've said it before. This upcoming year can make or break his football career. It's not going to make or break him. But what more can you ask for if you're CJ Stroud? You have everything in front of you. We also know it wasn't just your fault. Houston got to do what they need to do to put it around you. You have to be better. And the process starts now. So this wasn't necessarily a football talk. I just want to talk about CJ Stroud, acknowledging the fact that I went through some things. I had some stress. I had some pressure on me last year. I went through my own personal suffering. And I'm okay with suffering in front of everybody because I'm going to respond like I'm supposed to respond, which is what he said. Now, brother, that's great for 2025. The franchise also went through some suffering. They got to do better by you. You got to do right by them. But the combine is this week. I just want to talk about some of the things that I'll be looking for, and I want to hear from you guys as well. So make sure that you let me know how you feel in the comment section. More Locked On Texans talk on the way. Yeah, we're going to close out today's show just highlighting and shouting out FanDuel. FanDuel does it all, right? And when I say they do it all, they do it all. If you've ever wanted to experience an NBA Finals live and in person, FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. Flights, tickets, the whole experience included. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is a perfect time to lock it in. And now, not only can your pick cash in, but it can also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for a chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Closing out today's show, I'll be in Indianapolis on Thursday. First year at the Combine. And for me, it's really about speaking with some of these players. Their life is going to change in a couple of months because of their hard work. But with their hard work, there's some things that at the next level, okay, what are you good at? Right? Like if I could talk to Emmanuel Pregnon, like the first thing I'd ask him about is, how has playing at two high-level programs prepared you for the NFL? Oregon, USC, like these things matter. And also to take it a step further, follow-up question would be coming from Wyoming, getting to these places, what does that say about your work ethic? Why would a coach want you if you started off at Wyoming, made it to USC, finished at Oregon, two-time back-to-back Big 10 honors, Big 12 honors, Big 10 honors, excuse me. So, and I also want to look at some tight ends out there. Obviously, I talked about it. The running back group, I think, is in many ways, it's not deep with top end talent. But I think it is deep with talent that in 2 or 3 years, you're looking up and you're saying to yourself, oh, man, he had a touchdown. I haven't heard from him since draft period of 2025. So, Houston has an opportunity to do some things and add to their roster. We'll hear from general managers. We'll be able to talk with different coaches, a whole nine. It's going to be a fun experience. But this week is all about just getting the Houston Texans in a better place and how I can present that to you guys. And like I said, like there's going to be a player, especially with how I watch football, there's going to be a player out there that I think to myself, wait a minute, I need to go back and watch this tape. That was his athletic profile. I need to go watch and see how did that translate on film. that was his 40 time. I need to go back and see if that 40 time translates to him getting after the quarterback. Does that translate to him? Does his 40 times separate him from a tackle at the 1 yard line or being able to go untouched into the end zone? There's going to be some freak athletes out there that may post numbers in T-shirts, but when you cut the game footage on, it don't match. My job is to warn you of those guys. My job would have been to warn you of players like the kid in Carolina right now that everybody knows him from Raccoons and stuff like that, the country kid out of South Carolina. My job is to warn you guys of that. And so I'm super excited to get out there. I believe Nick Casario is already slated to be out there. I don't think D'Amico Ryans is going to be out there, so we won't hear from Coach. But here's another thing, guys. Diamond in the roughs are going to be important to look at. Potential guys that are, slated for the third round could potentially bump themselves up to the second round. But if there's a player that I believe the Houston Texans should just say, you know what, guys, we handled our business in free agency. We need to go all in and go get this player. I've said it before. They handle their business in free agency. And if Kenyon Sadiq is available between 18 and 28, I trade up for him. I do it. I would do it. And I saw some of the comments, he's too small. Go watch his blocking tape. Go watch it. But more so, you can teach blocking at the next level if you have the effort there. Go look at his motion rate, his success rate. Go look at how he's utilized on an offense. We can't sit here and talk about, you want to modernize his offense and the Texans need weapons, and then you got a clear-cut weapon in front of you, and you don't at least be aggressive about moving up to go get him. So, but also players that they draft stock may drop a little bit because of those test scores out there. Okay, if that's the case, who will be those players that I say to myself, you know what? With those 2 second-round picks, this player can greatly impact the Houston Texans. It's going to be some guys out there, guys. It's going to be some guys that, in many ways, can help Houston just get over the hump. They have to do what they need to do in free agency, but the draft is where you really create space between yourself and other teams. And with the AFC South becoming more competitive, this is just the right way to go. This team in Tennessee is going to be competitive next year. Not saying they're going to be better than Houston, but they're going to be competitive. They're going to be more competitive. Houston swept them last year. You get Robert Saleh, you get Brian Daboll with Cam Ward. Like, there's some things and elements that they will present to Houston that would be a challenge. They split with Jacksonville last year and could very well lost both games if they didn't have a remarkable fourth quarter. Shout out to D. Millie. So it's all about staying ahead of the curve. Houston did that their first 2.5 years. A concussion hurt them this year with CJ Stroud missing 3 games. They won all 3 of those games. So you can't count that against them. They started off 0-3. That hurt them staying above the curve. They lost their first game against Jacksonville. Like, things like that hurt Houston this year. Getting the right vets in the building could eliminate what hurt them in the regular season. Getting the right playmakers in the building, along with those veterans that know how to win, could really skyrocket Houston to the next level of their phase, and that is getting to the AFC Championship game. Thank you for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast, and follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Until next time, ladies and gents, Texan fans across the nation, peace.